Perhaps it's a cliche, but if you're in Cuba, you kind of have to smoke a cigar, right? When in Rome and all that. The whole economy is based around cigars, and they're banned in America. There's plenty of cigar shops to buy them in, but the best way to do it is on the black market. Just ask anyone on the street, or your host if you're staying in a casa, and it should be easy enough to get it sorted.
Finito.
It's perfectly fine to spend all of your time in Cuba slightly sozzled. Rum is part of the way of life. Whether you're on the rooftop of your casa, sitting on the beach, or dancing in the cave club in Trinidad, there'll be mojitos, daiquiris, and Cuba Libre galore. There is beer available, but it's not as good. You're best trying to drink everything that Hemingway did, which leads us nicely on to visiting the old house of Ernest Hemingway, the great American writer. Hemingway was suffering from writer's block during his stays here, but still managed to force out The Old Man and the Sea, for which he won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. Lucky for some. His house has been preserved by the Cuban government as a museum, even though it was seized from him when all the Americans lost their Cuban land. It's lovely, a bit like a nice version of your grandparents' house, and the grounds are perfect for a mid-afternoon stroll in the balmy heat. The northwest of Cuba is known as its garden, and was Fidel Castro's favourite region. At its heart is Mirador National Park. You can hire a horse and a guide in Viñales, the sleepy tourist town nearby, to walk you past the maize and tobacco farms, and up into the mountains. The views down the valleys are spectacularly beautiful, and the hills are unlike any we had seen before, steep cliffs covered in greenery. On the way back, it's possible to stop at a tobacco farm and see how cigars are rolled. Old Havana is literally one street away from tourist Havana, and that means there's still a lot of travellers wandering about, but not so many. To a certain extent, this is poverty tourism. It is the inner city, and Cuba is a poor country. But if you want to see the day-to-day life of Havana, or try to nab the classic photograph of an old woman smoking a cigar on her doorstep, here is where to visit. It's a tumble-down place. The streets are cut up, and many of the inhabited homes appear to have no roofs. But it's lively. Salsa, rumba, and hip-hop spills onto the street from every house, and people are dancing or playing dominoes or just watching the world go by.
I don't know, but let's get out of here.
Because America was so scared of communist Cuba, it stopped every country it could from trading with it. This means that next to no new cars have been imported since the revolution in the 50s. However, somehow the Cubans are wily enough to keep these cars that are at least 60 years old running. Just don't forget to negotiate. During the Cuban Revolution, Che Guevara felt he had to lead his troops into Santa Clara without waiting for reinforcements. After a few days of brutal house-to-house fighting, Santa Clara fell to Che and the Cuban Revolution was won. Che had completed his transformation from doctor to legendary revolutionary. The people of Santa Clara erected the monument on the edge of town to celebrate their emancipation. Trinidad Village is a pristine piece of old colonial Cuba. The buildings are ancient. It was preparing for its 500th anniversary during our visit, and the streets are covered in huge, difficult cobbles. The town is right in the sea, there's waterfalls on the edge of town to hike to, and there's a club deep in a cave on top of the mountain to dance in. The square, in the centre of town, is where everything happens on a night. It's ringed by bars serving cheap mojitos, and there's plenty of shops to buy your own rum for even cheaper if you want to sit and shoot the breeze with all the travellers you'll meet. It wouldn't be a trip to the Caribbean without lying on the beach, drinking an ice-cold mojito, and having the sun beat down on your poor, pasty white skin. Or maybe that last bit is just me. Perhaps the best one to visit is in Trinidad. We didn't shoot any video on the beach, because that's a bit weird. But it's amazing. It's quiet. The sand is soft and smooth, and the waves are gentle. Of course, you must relax. There can be a little bit of stress travelling around Cuba, especially if you don't do your research before you go. But once you get into the swing of the country, you'll be grand. There's little to no internet available, so disconnect from life and the world, lie back and enjoy it. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. Click like if you enjoyed it and hit subscribe if you want to see more.